Hey everyone, now you may not have seen that I recently went back on my word and took in 2 aquatic turtles. And I did a whole video on that. You should absolutely go check that video out and come right back. Or at the end of this, you can go check that out too. But I took in a red-eared slider and a yellow belly slider, 2 of the largest and most infamous pond turtles that you can really get. And I did go back on my word on this, and I talk about that, and I talk about why pond turtles can be a bit of an onerous task. But because of that, I want to take the opportunity to talk about 5 species of aquatic turtle that would make a better alternative to a red-eared slider or a yellow belly slider if you decided you want to take in a pond turtle, remembering that they take quite a bit larger enclosures and filtration and all that other stuff than most people would think that you would see in a lot of the regular care sheets, and much more complex and intricate than even keeping a land turtle or tortoise, which none of them are really beginner reptiles. So with that out of the way, let's talk about 5 really cool species of aquatic turtle that are not a red-eared slider. Starting off with what I think is one of the coolest species of turtle on the planet, and that is the map turtle. Map turtles are really, really unique looking. They look so cool. They're basically called map turtles because of their shells. Now, obviously, those big razors or the lumps on the back of their carapace is a big part of that, but also the pattern on them too. Because of those really cool and interesting looking rings, plus those little lumps, they almost look like a topographical map. And because of that, no turtle looks exactly the same. They look like if you were spreading on a map and you could see the varying degrees of height of the mountains and the hills and the valleys on a map, on a landscape, like if you were surveying it. And so that's why they get their name map turtle. There's actually 14 different species of them out there, and they all vary in size, some getting almost up to 10 inches and one much smaller. Now, the really cool, interesting about map turtles, in addition to obviously their shell pattern, is their sexual dimorphism. And normally when we're talking about reptiles, the first thing that people think of is the green anacondas, and that's basically the same for map turtles. The males sometimes, again depending on species, can be anywhere from 2 to 5 inches, and females significantly larger, sometimes 7 to more than 10 or 11 inches, and then oftentimes up to 10 times their mass. So a big female and a little male. It's really, really funny. Now again, they are smaller than the red-eared sliders, however, they are mainly carnivorous, eating mainly mollusks and crustaceans, and so you're going to be looking for either a commercial turtle diet that has significantly more protein content, or you're going to be feeding them like frozen things like scallops and shrimp and things like that. Just to keep that in mind, they do eat a little bit of plant matter, but it's something to the akin of like 80, high 80s% of protein versus the plant matter. Probably a lot of that they get a lot of from algae, certain types of algae that does float along the surface of the water, as well as sometimes the plant matter that are in the crustaceans that they're eating themselves. Next up, if you didn't think the map turtle was the coolest looking turtle, then this one certainly is, and that is the Diamondback Terrapin. Terrapin being another basic word for aquatic turtle or turtle in general. Now they get diamondback because of their shell pattern. Similar to the map turtle, no one is the same, but they do have kind of a basic diamond or gem look, and they do vary in color, sometimes almost like a yellowish gold, all the way to a dark brown. But it's kind of the pattern, not the color, that get their name. Most of which of them, their actual skin color outside of their shell, so their head, neck, and limbs and tail, are usually kind of like a palish off-gray to even kind of like a blue hue to them, and they have a bunch of varying black spots. They are really, really beautiful turtles. They're a pretty small one too. And in the wild, they actually have the largest range of any North American turtle, and they essentially range all the way up and down the coast, from Maine to the Florida Keys. And in addition to that, they're also one of the most threatened. If you keep up with any of the reptile news or USR, you may have seen different things about different states banning their keeping or their harvesting, and that is actually for a fairly decent reason, albeit not quite nuanced and a little bit not fully thought through. That is because in a big chunk of their range, they are threatened. Over the years, they were harvested primarily for people eating in things like turtle soup, and then nowadays a lot of them are being drowned in drag nets by commercial fishermen. And you would think that's kind of weird, right? Well, it's actually because the Diamondback Terrapin can survive incredibly high amounts of salinity in their habitats. They're often found in salt marshes up along the coast and obviously in the Florida Keys, to the point where they're even found in full salt water, which is super crazy. When I've looked into their actual care, a lot of people have said varying things about whether or not they keep them with high amounts of saltinity, almost like brackish water, freshwater fish. So maybe if you decide that you want to take in one of these captive bred animals and it's legal in your state, definitely talk to the breeder or the person you're getting it from, how they keep their adults and how they've been doing it successfully for long periods of time. And just like doing any other research for any other type of species, just watching this video and talking to one other person, make sure you get plenty of research before you decide to take home this absolutely amazing and beautiful and special reptile. Next up is what I would argue is probably the best choice of aquatic turtles on this list, and that is the musk turtle. Now, the musk turtle gets its name because of these two glands that are on the edge of its shells that excrete a foul-smelling and probably tasting liquid, similar to how snakes musk, and that is how they got their name. And that's also the reason why they're sometimes called stink pot turtles. Now, these guys are, again, and found endemically in North America. I say again, that's been every single one of these, and it's most of the ones on this list too. And they are found across a good chunk of kind of like the southeastern, south central part of the United States into a little bit of the Midwest. They're very, very small. They average 2.5 to 5-ish inches long, so a very small, manageable sized turtle. In addition, they do have very similar razorback to that of the map turtles, although usually not quite to the extreme depending on the species of map turtle, and they're very high domed as far as their carapace. They almost look like a box turtle because you don't really think of the sliders. They have much more kind of a flat streamline look. These guys are definitely a little bit more boxy. And so, I don't know if it's necessarily because of that, but they are one of the species of aquatic turtle that aren't the best swimmers. They're not really free swimming. They're definitely ones that stick to kind of the shallows. And that actually brings me to kind of another interesting attribute that they have. When you look at their chin, they actually have these kind of cool little barbels on the underside of their head and neck. And those little barbels are essentially sensory organs. In the kind of either murky or dark water, or in kind of sandy or muddy bottom riverbeds, streams, lakes, ponds, that's where they're looking for their food, and they can use those barbels to detect if there are any invertebrates, crustaceans, mollusks under there, and they can dig them out. Now, I did say previously that they aren't the best swimmers, so if you decide to take a musk turtle home as a pet, you probably don't want to keep their water very, very high. Definitely enough so that way they can fully turn around and swim around, but you don't need something that's like 2 or 3 feet deep. Probably something that if it's a 5-inch turtle, something that's probably just about a foot and a half deep. But because of that, it might be really cool to have something that's much wider. There are probably varying opinions. This is a person who doesn't keep a lot of aquatic turtles. This is just going off about 5 or 6 articles that I read, and that's where I'm giving this kind of generalistic information. But again, always contact wherever you're getting this turtle from, how they're keeping their turtles. Next up, the only turtle on the list that doesn't come from North America, and that is the Reeves turtle, sometimes and often called the Chinese pond turtle. Now, this pond turtle is quite a bit different than basically every pond turtle that we think of, generally thinking of a pond or a slider when it comes to that kind of thinking, which for the most part is generally a good idea to not really have as a pet. But the Reeves turtle looks very similar to that of the musk turtle, where it's a very high-domed animal, but it is significantly larger. They typically average anywhere from 5.5, 6 inches to about 9 inches at carapace length. So quite a bit bigger, but still smaller than like the yellow bellies or even the painted or the red-eared sliders. These guys are found in usually slow-moving, more warm, temperate waters than a lot of the North American river turtles. These guys are even sometimes found in like flooded rice paddies. They are really cool and again not very good swimmers like the musk turtles, so being a larger turtle, thinking of a little bit larger of a habitat but not super deep. These are one of the ones that are actually more omnivorous as adults versus a lot of the other ones on the list that are definitely more carnivorous, much more heavy protein diets. These guys are actually eating leafy greens and for sure vegetation. So when I say leafy greens, I mean if you keep Reeves turtles as pets, you can sit there and throw them leafy greens and they will eat them. These guys do, however, face a little bit of habitat loss and are sometimes considered threatened in varying degrees on where they're found between China and Korea. excuse me, and that is mostly because of habitat loss, water pollution, and use in traditional local medicine. So, yeah, but I do see them from time to time. They are probably wholesaled or imported, either via wet markets or via the actual pet trade. But not to say that they don't make necessarily bad pets, or that you want to get one of those versus one of the other ones that are captively born. I usually advocate for captive-born animals for really most cases in general, but Reeves turtles do make really good pet aquatic turtles if that's something that you want to. Last on the list is also the smallest on the list. This is a very, very adorable little turtle. That is the spotted turtle. Another one obviously found from North America, if it wasn't hinted at already. These guys are tiny, typically averaging 2 to 4 inches, and that's it. They're not very high dome, so they're they're very round as adult shape. They're not more oblong like a lot of the other ones, but they're very round. And they're well known for their very dark gray to black background coloration, both on their heads and limbs and tail, as well as their carapace, with bright yellow dots. Sometimes they can be more of a white, and I've even seen some that have a little bit of red dots here and there. And they vary in size and amounts. There are varying opinions about whether or not females have more or less. I have heard from actual turtle people, and I've read online, and it still varies about whether or not females have more dots or males have more dots, or if it even really matters. But they are really cool. They vary in size, and it can be not only on their shells, but it can also be on their heads, necks, and limbs as well. These guys are what a lot of turtle people would consider a more shy species. These are ones that typically, when you have a turtle that's very used to you and definitely associates food and your presence, will come up to you, and they don't always shoot off. This one, you very rarely will ever see that with a spotted turtle if they have an option to take off. These guys are often found in the wild more in kind of like boggy areas and more marshy swamps than a lot of the other ones that are found in more ponds or slow-moving streams or lakes. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, and that also doesn't necessarily mean that you want to keep their water dirty. You always want to keep nice, clean, and filtered water with any species of aquatic animal, right? They are really cool. They are a little bit omnivorous, but still definitely more protein heavy. Now, the biggest thing about these guys is that, like a lot of species of aquatic turtle, like the Diamondback Terrapin, like the Reeves turtle, they are threatened in parts of their range, and so sometimes it is illegal to keep them in your state. And so, like a lot of times when we're talking about native wildlife in your state, you always want to make sure that you can legally keep them. We want to keep the reptile hobby's reputation going strong, right? So, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys are thinking about keeping a pet turtle, either for yourself or your kid is asking for one, or whatever may have you, and you're really considering about it, and you thought about it, and you've actually heard about the rad reputation of the rare-eared sliders, then you might want to consider one of these animals on the list today as potential for bringing home with you. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Sorry about that little stutter out there. It's been a day. But again, thank you so much. If you can, check out the playlist here of the top 5 videos. If you can, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, share with your friends. If you really do enjoy this kind of content and you want to do more than just view these videos, which I absolutely am so thankful for everyone who watches these videos. I really, really do appreciate it. But if you did want to do more, I do have a Patreon. If you want to click that, the link's down below in the description of this and every video. Varying degrees of patronage with various rewards. So, again, thank you so much. Hope everyone's having a great day, and we'll check you next time.